back to yet another Schmeat video. I'm back in the car. I have to drive like an hour, so I might as well talk about the Charlotte Hornets while I do that. But some big news happened on an organizational level with the Charlotte Hornets, as Michael Jordan, I'm sure all of you heard, he sold the Charlotte Hornets. And he made a pretty good profit. He bought them for around $277 million and sold them for about, I think it was like $2.5 billion. So that's a great return on investment for Michael Jordan. But instead of just talking about, Michael Jordan, how he kind of sucked as an owner, maybe the new owners will help. I heard it was the Atlanta Hawks, one of their majority ownership groups, and then a majority ownership group that already had some slice of the pie before. They're now the majority for the Charlotte Hornets. And I heard J. Cole is a part of that majority group, which is kind of cool. Obviously, it's not going to be the spokesperson or anything, and I don't even know if there's any validity to that, but I thought that was kind of cool. But instead of talking about that, because the ownership, yes, they matter, but in the grand scheme of things, it's about the players that play on the court, right? Yes, it's coaching staff, it's GM, draft, whatever. The owner, just ticket sales, passive income, whatever. So instead of talking about the ownership, I thought I'd talk about the Charlotte Hornets and their team going into the 2023 to 2024 season. And just on like a team level, we need some shooting. We let Malik Monk walk in free agency. We let Devontae Graham get traded to the Pelicans, although we got some fine draft picks and some cap space in return. We didn't really do anything with it. We need to replace our current players with at least one or two shooters. We had a good pickup last season that I didn't really get to touch on because I wasn't really uploading. But we picked up out of free agency for a minimum deal, Svi Mykhailiuk. I don't know if I'm saying his last name right, but he was pretty good for us. Yes, he's a shooter, but he also drove to the basket. He was passing the ball really well. I think he was a good pickup for us. Do I think he helps us in the future? Not in a God's chance. But that is a stepping stone for the ownership and for the GM to realize, okay, Svi is like a poor man's shooter in the NBA. If we can get even 10% better than Svi was from a shooting level, as a small forward position, shooting guard position, whatever, that is excellent for our team, especially coming off the bench. Because right now, I'm kind of sick of the last two seasons having our backup point guards be Ish Smith, Isaiah Thomas, I don't even know who else other than that. I mean, yes, James, our rookie, for some reason I'm blanking on his last name. He's from UConn. He was kind of in the rotation a little bit when LaMelo was out. Yes, he had a great game. I think one of the games he had a great game. He had like 20 points, but he's not an option right now. All those young guys that we have, it's the same thing when I was thinking about Vernon Carey when we had Vernon Carey. Now you don't even hear about Vernon Carey. We traded him to the Wizards for Ish Smith, and nobody's heard a damn thing about Vernon Carey Jr. It's the same thing with Nick Richards and all of our young guys. Kai Jones. Will they all pan out? I don't know. Well, do I want them to pan out? Yes. But trying to rely on those young guys moving forward, it's just not a good idea. Yes, it's good to rely on proven players that have a track record of being great NBA players like LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier, Gordon Hayward. But trying to rely on a bench that has no real NBA merit, it's hard to win as that NBA team. That's why in free agency, I don't know how much cap space we have just because we have fucking Gordon Hayward and we have to pay him $30 million. $30 million for Gordon Hayward just to play 20 games a season. I don't know if we have any cap space to sign anybody. Would I like an Austin Reeves? Hell yeah. Would I like other just role players around LaMelo that can catch and shoot? Yes, but where it stands right now, I'd have to look at the cap space. Instead of talking about players that we can add to the team, let's talk about the players that are under contract for the team. Let's start with Terry Rozier. Personally, I thought he was getting traded at the deadline. That obviously did not happen. He's on with us for another, I think, 2 seasons for his contract. And I don't see him playing out his contract with us. I think we trade him this offseason. If we're smart, we trade him this offseason. Something to the Suns, maybe, for one of their young players, or a draft pick, because I don't want Chris Paul. That's not what I'm saying. But the Suns are in need to trade some of their assets, one of those being Chris Paul. So whether we are in a 3-team deal where Chris Paul is getting shipped to another team, we give the Suns Terry Rozier and something else maybe, and they give us a player and a draft pick and another team something else. I don't really know, but I think Terry Rozier isn't going to play out the rest of his deal. He's getting up there in age. I think he's 29, 30. He is a great player. He makes tough shots. He's a great three-point shooter. He's a great off-the-dribble shooter. He gets down to the hoop. He can score. We know he's a scorer. But we've seen his peak, right? We saw his peak at the end of his time in Boston, and we saw what he's capable of doing these 2 years at the Hornets. And I don't know if that's what our team needs. And I don't know if we can take that next step with Terry Rozier as our point guard. That doesn't mean he's a bad player. That doesn't. But I don't think we can excel as a team when we have a point guard who's already hit his peak, hit his limit on what he can do. Like, we've already seen everything Terry Rozier can do in the NBA. Now we're on to other players like PJ Washington and Miles Bridges. I'll throw in there in the same category where they're power forward, small forward. PJ Washington had a great season. He was playing with bums, so he had to take more shots, but he did have a great season. Miles Bridges is interesting because I've heard reports via Twitter, via Instagram, that the Hornets are planning to re-sign Miles Bridges. Nothing really happened legally with him, I don't think. At least I didn't hear anything that happened legally as far as jail time or a settlement. So I think we're bringing him back. And Miles Bridges just brings a different element to our team. It's kind of that like fire starter that Malik Monk was a few seasons ago, where you just put him out there and he gives a little spark to the team. His dunks give that little spark. He's a great slasher. He reminds me of a poor man's Aaron Gordon, you could say. If he can fit in that same role where he's just a slasher, gets to the hoop, finishes, you can rely on him a little bit on the three-point line, although I'd love him to just drive to the hoop whenever he can, but he's a great player. I think you put him ahead of PJ Washington if we were to sign him, although they can play together in the starting lineup. But those two players are very interesting because I think those are long-term Hornets players, at least PJ Washington. I think he's a long-term Hornets player. He just fits that mold where you just throw him out there and you know he's going to be productive and you know he's going to produce and be efficient. So I think he's staying with us. As far as Gordon Hayward, my last video was talking about a Zion Williamson deal. And Gordon Hayward has been in reports to get traded for, a possible Zion Williamson, possible Brandon Ingram trade. And, that's a perfect scenario. Gordon Hayward is a great player when he's on the court. I've always said this for the past, 3 or 4 seasons that he's played with us. He got signed in free agency in 2020, so 3 seasons he's played with us. I've always said he's a great player when he's on the court. The problem is he's never on the court. He's always injured. So Gordon Hayward is not, I don't see him finishing out his contract. I think he has 1 year left on his contract, so I'd rather we trade him and maybe our second overall pick for something good than let him walk in free agency, although we would get cap space then if we just let him walk. So as a team right now, we're not doing well. There's a lot of weak parts to our team, especially in the front court. Maybe Mark Williams can solve some of those issues, although I'm not confident in putting all of our trust in a 21-year-old center who played limited minutes last year and primarily played 50-50 G League and NBA. I'm not confident in that. And I'm not going to be the one Hornets fan that keeps coming up with brain-dead Miles Turner trades, because over the last 4 to 5 seasons, Miles Turner has been in supposed trade talks that have never, ever happened. So I'm not going to be that Hornets fan that's like, oh, if we just get a Miles Bridges, he'll do fine. Because I learned my lesson in like 2021 when I made like 4 different trade videos and all of them had Miles Turner. And all of them made sense. So Hornets, if you want to hire me as your GM, that'd be perfect. But yeah, that's the video. That's our team right now. We're a little rough around the edges, but we do still have a centerpiece in LaMelo Ball. You can see I didn't really talk about LaMelo Ball that much because to me, LaMelo Ball is just a stable guy. Yes, he got injured last season. He didn't really play that much, but we didn't really need him to play. It was a rebuilding year for us. We weren't really doing anything anyways. So I was kind of fine with him sitting out. We tanked a little bit at the end of the season. But it worked out. That tank worked out because we ended up with the 2nd overall pick and it ended up being worth it. So thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys in the next video.